Biarritz Olympique have been relegated from Pro D2 for nothing related to their performances on the pitch due to financial irregularities. This is a story which has broken in the last 24 hours and which we need to hop on, of course. So I've got Joe Worsley, fresh from training at Brive there at the... I was going to say Marcel de Flandre, but that's La Rochelle. What's the name of your stadium again?
Omdi.
Ah.
Omdi Dominets.
Omdi Dominets. That's the one. That's the one. Yeah. Which will be, and we'll come on to this in a minute, and I don't want to mix up the thoughts. We will be on FI UK Rugby broadcasting the semi-final of the Pro D2 playoffs from that very ground.
Wow, how much do you have to pay? How much do you have to pay to watch that?
It's absolutely free, Joe. To anyone in the UK and Ireland.
No, shut up.
I know.
It's free.
There's no free rugby.
Come on.
There's no free professional rugby in England, is there? It all costs so much money.
You're pulling my leg. You're pulling my leg.
The Premiership Championship.
You can watch top quality semi-final rugby.
Unreal.
For free.
Unreal, for free. I'll cover that on more videos, but basically hit subscribe on the channel and be watching the barrage this Thursday and Friday night, 10 to 8 for an 8 p.m. kickoff. And then next week, the semi-finals, one of the games which will be at that stadium. That's not why we're here, Joe Worsley, although there will be videos on the channel building up to that. What's the feeling been like in France in the last 24 hours since this news that Biarritz, having avoided relegation in Pro D2, having finished in 9th, are going down?
Biarritz have been in trouble for a while. They came through some real issues in the last couple of years. Political problems, not lack of funding, the club getting lower and lower in the league. They only just stayed in Pro D2 this year. And it turns out the new people took over last summer, which was reputed to have been a little bit dodgy the way they got the deal over the line. It turns out that some of the money they promised wasn't in the bank, and the body that looks after the financial side of the top 14 and of Pro D2 has so much oversight. They can go to all your books, they check everything. And if you do have something wrong, or as I believe Biarritz lied about something to them as well, they hate that, and the consequences are harsh. They're not scared about pulling the trigger.
Yeah, so what's been said is that Biarritz have been administratively relegated, which none of the players or coaches, I mean, for all your hard work over 30 games.
Yeah, I know. It must be a real sucker punch, but
absolutely.
A club's got to be run well. I mean, we saw in the UK what happens if you let the clubs get away with too much, and over here they don't have much liberty financially to push the boundaries. They don't have any. So they got to declare at the start of the year, we've got this much money, we're going to do this, and the money's here, here, and here. And it turns out they hadn't been honest, and they lied about part of the money, which results in them getting relegated. I believe that's the case.
Yeah, so the DNACG, not sure exactly what that stands for, but the people that run the kind of, will go looking into the books on behalf of LNR, they cited worsening financial situation, uncertainties about its operational viability, and therefore demotion. Biarritz will also start next season in Federal 1 on -6 points. Biarritz have said they're going to appeal. They've said that it's all good faith and that they are committed to financial rectitude, which is not even a word I'm aware of, but I think we get the idea of what they're saying. So this hasn't run its course yet, but to your point, Joe, the scrutiny that clubs are put under is massive. This is far from the first time we've seen this.
Yeah, I think it's certainly happened before. Montauban, I remember dropping out of the top league years ago. It's a relatively small club. A guy came in with a bigger budget, and he, after a few years, stepped back a bit, and it turns out they didn't have the financial power to clout to stay up. And like I say, in France, they're very, very strict about the financial side of things.
Yeah, so some of the teams that this has happened to before, as Joe mentioned, Montauban relegated from the top 14 when they finished 12th. They then filed for bankruptcy soon afterwards. But this has happened to Biarritz a number of times. In 2014, and let's just set the scene here. Biarritz, in the early 2000s, were, one of the rugby royalty in Europe. Heineken Cup finals.
Yeah.
3 French championships in the space of 4 or 5 years. So a massive club. Imanol Haranordiki, Dimitri Yashvili. You can remember the legends that were there. Ian Bolshaw. But in 2014, Biarritz were relegated from the top 14, I believe. In 2016, they were relegated to Federal 1, all for financial irregularities. So is Biarritz a club that has, ever since it had that big benefactor and had those Heineken Cup finals and French championships, is it biting off more than it can chew?
Yeah, I think it had so many good years because a billionaire hedge fund owner loved the club and loved Biarritz and supported them through thick and thin for like 10, 20 years. So when he passed on, the club still has those ambitions, but they just don't have the budget. It's not a big enough place. Bayonne is starting to dominate the Basque country in terms of being the Basque club. So unfortunately for what is a wonderful rugby club, they've had issues for the last 10 years, severe issues.
You just touched on what is one of the, obviously there's the human element. You know, in fact, now's probably a good time to mention that it was only a few weeks ago and we were in Biarritz as part of a bit of content that's going to be coming on the channel soon. And we went to a game on the Thursday night, the game against Béziers, sat down on the Friday and had a chat with Zach Kibarigi, who was absolutely loving life there. And I mean, what happens to guys who are contracted when something like this happens? Guys like Zach Kibarigi, Charlie Matthews.
It depends on how severe. Listen, they're going to appeal. It depends whether they declare bankruptcy or they just go down the league and say we're going to come back up. There's a number of ways it could play out. I just hope people like Zach fall on their feet.
It's a tough time. Yeah. But you have already touched on one point that I think is worth reiterating, is that, I mean, your club, you've been, you weren't at the club when it went bust, but the club that you had so many happy days with and have all those memories with, currently is not in any league, Wasps. And just what's that like from a player's perspective? Because you can empathise with former players of Biarritz, fans.
Yeah, I think a lot of former players love that club and they're going to be, like I am, cut up. You've lost almost a member of the family, you know? Someone, I was with them for 15, 16, 17 years. Still a big part of my life with the ex-players and the old groups that we stay in touch with. So it is a massive thing and it's a sad moment. It's just, our club's got to be well run. I know it's insane to think that people can overstretch like they do, but I believe the group that bought them out last year had to scratch around to get enough money to do it. And it turns out that part of that scratching around was with a party that wasn't legit or legit enough for the authorities to say this is kosher.
Yeah, sad situation, but like we say, not a new one. We will watch and see how that appeal unfolds, and yeah, hope the Zach Kibarigi and the rest are all right. I mean, in a funny way, I was sort of like thinking, oh, it's a shame we went to Biarritz a few weeks ago because it would be more interesting now. But I imagine actually it's probably lucky we went when we did, because I can't imagine anyone at the club would want to talk to anybody right now. Everybody
was so relieved at winning a game that meant they stayed in the Pro D2. It was a massive moment for them, and then boom, they get hit with that after. Shocking.
It's going to feel weird. Keep an eye out for that on the channel. We'll watch what happens as it unfolds and be back on the channel soon. But yeah, just hit subscribe, get stuck in the comments down below, and make sure you join us for live Pro D2 playoff rugby on Thursday and Friday night this week and next week. Well, we'll be at that stadium that Joe's in right now. Looks nice there, Joe. How was training, by the way?
Training was good. Down week, we're going to be watching those barrage matches with obviously very interested at who's going to be coming our way.
Nice. Right. We'll see you on the next one.